Hey folks, so perhaps the more eagle-eyed among you have noticed this little gem hovering over my shoulder the last video or three, and maybe even noticed its cameo in my video about whether all dark glass drives sound the same. Much like Scarlett Johansson, the long overdue starring vehicle for this base is finally here. This is the Mako V2, but for obvious reasons, I'm going to refer to it as Goldbot. Because, I mean, look at this thing. Satin gold finish, satin gold matching headstock, gold neck bolts, gold pickguard screws, gold frets, gold colored inlays, even gold freaking strings. This is the most gold thing ever. This is the second most gold thing ever. Like most modern romances, this one started with a lot of thirsty Instagram comments by one of us. It eventually worked its way into an old-fashioned DM slide, and a few months later, here we are. Alpha is a small English shop out of Yorkshire, and they specialize in custom builds with some really arresting finishes. They do unconventional takes on body shapes, electronics configurations. Alpha doesn't really do the off-the-rack mass-produced thing, and everything I've seen from them is pretty unique, which of course brings us to this golden beast. When I got in touch with the kind folks at Alpha and they agreed to let me demo one of their bases and asked me which one I chose, I had to choose this one. I didn't really know much about how it sounded, but I found the pickup configuration, electronics, or lack thereof, and overall aesthetic irresistible. And I just had to take it for a spin. But before we do that, let's do some artful panning and scanning while I read from a build sheet. The Mako V2's body is one piece of black walnut, the neck is one piece of dark roasted maple, and the fingerboard is one piece of ebony. Goldbot's neck is a 34-inch scale and sports 21 EVO gold frets and some stately brass ring inlays, and my god is it bolted to the body with 6 asymmetrical golden bolts. The finger rest, control cavity cover, and scratch guard are all made of the same ebony as the fingerboard. The bridge is a Hipshot kickass, and Hipshot also supplies the tilted lollipop tuners with pre-installed detuner for the E-string. I saved the electronics for last, because I always do, and also because I've never seen anything quite like this. The Goldbot sports 3 51P hum-canceling single-coil Nordstrand pickups and an on-off button for each one. That's it. No volume control, no tone, no blend, no active electronics, no nothing. It's you and your hands. All right, let's see if the sonic bark matches the aesthetic bite. had a few friends over to the studio since Goldbot started its stay with me, and it is like the second thing that most people point out after how very, very small it is in here. I feel like at this point I don't need to articulate how aesthetically arresting this thing is, but there are a couple of construction details that I do want to point out. The body has an elegant bevel on the edges of it, front and back, that make it both beautiful and a little more comfortable under the forearm. I love the shape and spacing of the control cavity cover and the pick guard. They give it kind of a retro futurist Flash Gordon vibe that I'm completely in love with. And this is really finicky, but look at the spacing of the pickup magnetic pole pieces and this bolt that holds in the finger ramp. It feels like the exact same spacing all the way through. I just love little details like that. The more eagle-eyed among you might have also noticed that the screws for the pick guard and control plate aren't regular Phillips head screws, but they are actually Allen wrench screws, which would be annoying except for one thing. The folks at Alpha are kind enough to include this multi-Allen screwdriver in the case, and I'm gonna miss this tool easily as much as the base because I have put this to work all over my studio. Okay, on to how it sounded. We can all see how it looks. I love the idea that this bass just goes, here are 3 pickups, you can turn them on and off, and that's all you can do. The rest is up to your hands. Alpha doesn't really do standard models, and this bass doesn't really do standard tones. Almost everything I got on this bass was a little bit unusual. I would say with the exception of the middle pickup soloed, that's pretty much straight ahead 51p bass. Overall, the tone has a nice earthy punch to it and never got too bright for my taste. In fact, this bass seems like it might pair really well with flat wounds, as long as you can find a gold colored set, of course. It sits really comfortably on the lap and actually feels a little bit lighter than it is. The neck, which I have not said enough about, is beautiful and silky feeling on the back. I do have one slight issue with this bass, and that's honestly the ramp. I like the idea behind it so that you can be as particular as you want about your right hand placement, but I typically anchor on the top of a pickup or sometimes on the E string unless I'm playing it. So using this ramp opened up my right hand posture a little bit more than I usually do, so it was another thing to get used to. That being said, this ramp is really comfortable to use thanks to a scalloped cross section, and it's easy to fine-tune your right hand approach. Needless to say, I'm completely in love with the aesthetic. This bass was a ton of fun to get to know. All right, I think that's gonna do it for the Alpha Mako Prime V2, aka Goldbot. I've been Amos, you've been amazing. Bye.